All right, everybody, buckle up, because today we're diving headfirst into one of Jordan Peterson's most talked about ideas from his 12 Rules for Life.
This one really gets people fired up.
You said it. It's that whole thing about lobsters
Oh yeah, the lobster.
and dominance hierarchies and what it all means for, well, us. You ready to unpack this?
I'm ready, let's do it.
So Peterson kicks off this whole thing by saying, stand up straight,
Yeah.
right? Like basic good posture advice. Your mom probably told you that.
Exactly, but then he takes this left turn
A big one.
and says, it's not just about looking confident, it's about tapping into this ancient primal instinct we share with, get this, lobsters.
Lobsters. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
The more you think about it, the more it kind of makes sense.
It does in a weird way.
Yeah. Think about those nature documentaries, right? With lobsters battling it out on the ocean floor.
Claws clashing, antenna twitching.
Exactly. Those lobsters aren't just messing around.
Not at all. There's a whole social hierarchy going on down there.
And the winners, they're not just winning bragging rights. They're winning resources. They're winning territory, food, even mates.
It's serious business being a lobster. And here's the thing. Peterson argues that humans, even though we like to think we're so evolved, we're still wired with some of those same basic instincts.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but humans and lobsters, how does that work?
Well, just like in the lobster world, human societies have their own pecking orders. Think about it. Schools, workplaces, friend groups, even families.
Yeah, there's always some kind of social structure.
Exactly. And just like those lobsters, we're constantly sizing each other up, sending out signals, trying to figure out where we stand in the hierarchy.
And those signals, we're not talking about spraying chemicals like lobsters do, are we?
Not quite. But we've got our own versions, body language, tone of voice, how we dress, the car we drive, who we know. These are all ways of signaling status and dominance, even if we're not always consciously aware of it.
So it's like we're all walking around with these invisible signs saying, hey, I'm the alpha, or don't mess with me, or please be nice to me.
In a way, yes. And just like those lobsters battling it out on the ocean floor, these social dynamics, they trigger real, measurable changes in our brains.
Okay, now we're getting to the really interesting part.
Yeah.
Tell me more about what's happening in our brains when we're talking about dominance.
Well, this is where it gets a little bit sciencey, but stick with me, it's fascinating.
I'm all ears.
So there are these two key brain chemicals at play here, serotonin and octopamine.
Serotonin, I've heard of that one. Isn't that the happy chemical?
It is, and it plays a huge role in how we feel about ourselves, how confident we feel, how dominant we feel.
And octopamine.
Okay, octopamine is a little less famous, but just as important in this whole dominance equation.
So how do these two chemicals, serotonin, the happy one, and octopamine, this other one, how do they relate to dominance?
It's all about what happens when we win or lose. And yeah, maybe we're not fighting over territory with our claws, but we all experience those moments where we feel like we've come out on top. And those moments where we feel defeated.
Absolutely. Those wins and losses, they can be big or small.
Right. Right. Like acing a presentation at work, that could be a win. Or getting passed over for a promotion, definitely a loss. And our brains, just like those lobsters, respond accordingly.
So a win, our serotonin levels go up, we feel good, confident.
Exactly. You're riding high, feeling invincible, ready to take on the world. And that, in turn, can influence how you behave, how you carry yourself, how you interact with others. You're more likely to take risks, to assert yourself, to go after what you want.
It's like a positive feedback loop, right?
Yeah.
Winning leads to more confidence, which could lead to more winning.
Exactly. But what's really interesting is what happens on the flip side.
When we experience a loss.
When we experience a loss, when those serotonin levels dip and octopamine starts to surge, it can have the opposite effect.
Okay, so walk me through this. What's happening in our brains when we're feeling defeated? What's this octopamine doing? So we just left off talking about serotonin and octopamine and wins and losses, but like, how does this actually play out in our lives?
Right, because it's easy to talk about lobsters duking it out, but we're not living on the ocean floor. We're dealing with deadlines, relationships, traffic jams.
Yeah, real life stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do we take this kind of primal lobster brain stuff and make it work for us?
That's the million-dollar question. I'm all ears.
Well, Peterson says it starts with awareness. We've got to pay attention to how our bodies are reacting in different situations.
Okay, what do you mean? Like, am I clenching my jaw when my boss is talking to me?
That's a good example. Are you crossing your arms? Are you avoiding eye contact? Or are you sitting up straight, leaning in, looking people in the eye? These little things, they make a difference.
Because our bodies are sending signals to our brains just as much as our brains are sending signals to our bodies.
Exactly. Peterson calls it the behavioral feedback loop. So if we're constantly slumping, avoiding eye contact, our brain is getting the message that we're feeling defeated, which can then lead to more of those low serotonin feelings.
Wow, it's like a vicious cycle.
It can be, but here's the good news. We can flip the script.
Tell me more. How do we do that?
By consciously changing our behavior, even if we don't feel confident on the inside.
So like fake it till you make it.
Kind of. But it's not really about faking it. It's about sending our brain a different message. Because even if you don't feel confident going into that big meeting, if you stand up straight, shoulders back, head up, make eye contact.
Any feeling more confident just thinking about it.
Right. Your brain is like, whoa, hold on, we're doing something different here. Maybe we are in control. And that can lead to a bump in serotonin.
So it's not just about looking confident. It's about changing our actual brain chemistry by changing our physical behavior.
Exactly. Now, I know what you might be thinking.
What's that?
What about those times when we do lose? Because let's face it, life's not always a winning streak. We're going to face setbacks, disappointments, rejections.
Yeah, those hit hard. What do we do then? Do we just give in to the low serotonin slump and call it a day?
Uh-huh.
So we're talking about losing. And yeah, those losses, they can really knock us down. And it's in those moments where, honestly, standing up straight feels like the last thing you want to do.
Oh, absolutely. You feel like curling up in a ball and disappearing sometimes.
Exactly. But Peterson, he has this really interesting take on losing, and it goes back to those lobsters again.
Right, because as weird as it sounds, lobsters can actually teach us a thing or two about resilience.
Okay, I'm listening. How do lobsters bounce back from a loss?
Well, when a lobster loses a fight, its brain basically goes through this massive rewiring process.
Whoa, seriously. Their brain rewires itself.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's like their brain is saying, okay, that didn't go well. We need to, in fact, we need to learn from this experience.
So it's not just about the physical defeat. It's about how their brains respond and adapt to that experience.
Exactly. And Peterson argues that humans, we have that same capacity for change, for rewiring our own neural pathways, for learning and growing from our setbacks.
Okay, that's kind of empowering. So it's not about avoiding failure. It's about how we choose to respond to it.
Exactly. It's about recognizing those negative emotions, those feelings of defeat, but not letting them define us, not letting them keep us stuck in that low serotonin slump.
So what are some practical things we can do to tap into that inner lobster resilience, to rewire our own brains after a setback?
Well, it starts with acknowledging loss, acknowledging those painful feelings. We don't want to fall into that trap of pretending everything's okay when it's not.
Right, because ignoring those feelings doesn't make them go away.
Exactly. So we acknowledge them, we sit with them, but then we have to ask ourselves, okay, what can I learn from this experience? How can I grow from this?
Because even in those moments of defeat, there's always something to be learned, right?
Always. And once we've taken some time to reflect and learn, Peterson says it's time to shift our focus to what we can control.
What do you mean?
Well, we can't always control the outcomes of our efforts, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we work really hard and things just don't go our way. But we can control how we respond to those setbacks. We can control our attitude, our effort, our persistence.
So it's about focusing on the things we can control, even when everything else feels uncertain.
Exactly. And that's how we start to rewire our brains, to build that lobster resilience. It's about choosing to stand tall, even when we feel like curling up in a ball. It's about choosing to focus on the positive, even when we're surrounded by negativity.
It's about choosing to keep moving forward, even when we feel like giving up.
You got it. And that's something we can all work on every single day.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life and those surprising